Hi, Bonnie.
Hi there, how are you, Liza?
Okay, how are you?
Good. Is everybody okay? You're just not at home or not in the office today?
Yeah, I have to be somewhere in East Hampton at 3:45, and
Okay.
Megan also wasn't able to come in. We work from home a lot, so it's weird for us to have an in-person meeting, but yeah.
It's good to
Plus,
have them in person.
yeah. Plus we were thinking with presenters, if some are online and some are in person, it's a little bit harder. It might just be easier if everybody's just online.
Sounds fine. It's a beautiful day. I wouldn't have mind coming.
It is. Hi, Danielle.
Hello. Actually, yeah, I am on. Hi.
You are. Hi.
Actually, this worked out for me. We went to Italy last week and I walked too much, and I'm embarrassed to say that I actually like bruised my hip, so I've been laid up since.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you were in Italy though.
No, it's
Good
great.
place to meet.
We were in the Palace Gardens in Florence, and they have like it just kind of goes uphill, and there's these towers, and I probably shouldn't be climbing them all, but I tried.
Hi, Debbie.
Hello.
Debbie, if I pronounce your name Husher, is that correct?
Husher.
Husher, sorry. Thank you.
That's all right. Does like I always joke around, doesn't matter what you call me, just call me.
Hello, Susie and Marcos.
Hello. Hi there.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Abby.
Hey, Liza, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
First time, that never happens.
Good job. Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Hi, this is Tom Pinkwish.
Hi, Tom. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. I'm on. I'm going to be getting in the car, so I'll be start with Zoom, then I'll get off and just be on phone.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Hello, welcome, Ben, Trip,
Hi, how are
and
you?
Ben Lovejoy. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Megan. Hi, Sam.
hello.
Mhm. So Michael, whenever you want to start, just go right ahead.
Thanks, Eliza. Has the joining rate tapered off?
I think so. I got a couple co-hosts on here, so I think people are letting other people in for me, so we're probably good.
Okay, in that case then, let's call the meeting to order. It's April 23rd, 2024. Lower Connecticut River Valley Regional Council of Governments Housing Committee. And our first order of business is going to be, actually, do you have the attendance, Eliza, at this point?
Yes.
Okay, good. Our first up on the agenda then is going to be approval of the minutes from our March 26th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
Sure, I'll move.
Thanks, David. Second?
I guess I'm acting today because Pat is away, so I will second.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we can go to a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from the March 26th, 2024 meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Minutes are approved. Thanks, everybody. Okay, next up on the agenda is going to be just a quick review of the agenda and an opportunity to amend anything that's not there. I'll just a quick side note. We didn't put another business on today's agenda, mostly in the interest of managing our time, because those things tend to come up right around what we aim for is our stop at 3:30. So we're going to try and capture anything that we want to add to the agenda now and have the opportunity to put it on today or maybe capture it under a later agenda item when we'll look at future meetings. So with that in mind, are there any amendments to the agenda today? Okay. Hearing none, I think we can consider that the current agenda approved then and move on to the center of our agenda today, which is going to be a discussion with our guest Ben Tripp and Debbie Husher. And Eliza, or are you going to introduce?
I
Or
am.
Megan?
Megan, I'm gonna tell your secret, but Megan has a little bit of a sore throat, so I'm gonna do as much of the talking as possible today. So yes, thank you so much to Ben and to Debbie both for being here for this discussion. What I think is probably the best thing to do is to let them both present and talk about what they're going to talk about, and then we'll kind of hold questions until the end. Feel free to put questions in the chat then I can read the questions off, or raise your hand using that function at the end if you know how to do that. So Ben Tripp is the Executive Vice President of Development for Metro Realty. He's responsible for sourcing new development opportunities, working with third-party professionals to design new developments, and bringing new opportunities through the municipal zoning approval process. Most of Ben's experience has been with multifamily housing, both market rate and affordable. And on the affordable housing side, Ben is also responsible for pursuing tax credit financing from CHFA and the Department of Housing. Most recently, Ben completed the development of 88 mixed income apartments in Berlin. And in the last 12 months, he's secured approvals for 3 projects in Farmington, Cheshire, and South Windsor, totaling over 200 apartments. Each of these developments will include financing from CHFA and DOH. And Debbie Husher is our real estate professional. She's been working in the industry for 21 years. She runs a small team with William Ravis, which is the #1 team in Middlesex County for sales. and she volunteers as the marketing coordinator for the Durham Fair for the past 11 years and is also the chamber chairperson for Durham. So I think we will start with Ben, and maybe you can just talk to us a little bit about how you handle your developments, and I
Sure.
know you have some photos to show us, so
Sure.
go ahead.
Well, I guess I'll get that up. I'll share my screen. So yes, I'm with the Metro Realty Group. We're a ground up developer. We've done all types of residential and commercial development over the years. The firm's been around for about 30 years. But my role has been focusing on multifamily. And while I've done both market rate and affordable, I really have focused on affordable, multifamily affordable housing development. I haven't done any for sale. Sorry, I'm talking as I'm attempting to share my screen here. Haven't done any for sale development as of yet, but let's see. Mhm. Got this. There we go. So I thought I'd start with one of our earlier, so higher level, all of the affordable development that we've done as an organization has been in communities that are considered higher opportunity communities, mostly suburban communities. Farmington, South Windsor, Berlin, Avon, Canton. I'm sure I'm missing one or two, but it's been sort of our strategic direction as a firm to develop a more kind of colonial and suburban style of development in those communities. It's been both our personal perspective, but it's been echoed by the strategic direction of the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority and the Department of Housing, that there has been historically a lot of development in the poorer, more urban communities of affordable housing, but another way to sort of break the cycle of poverty is to bring affordable housing to communities that inherently have higher opportunities. That is, better access to employment, lower rates of crime, and higher educational opportunities. So this is the development that we did in Farmington. It was our first family affordable housing development almost 30 years ago. We've since, about 5 years ago, we renovated it. It's called Heritage Farms, Heritage Glen in Farmington. It's 88 apartments, mixed income. It's about 60% affordable and 40% market rate. It just gives you, so in all of those towns that I've referenced that we've developed in, we have, I'd say the founders of my organization had the foresight to realize that we would like to do more business in these same communities, not just kind of one quick development and then, perhaps we wanted to create something that the town was proud of, so that they would invite us back to do more business in town. So this was the first of, I think, now 6 developments we've done in Farmington. We have another approved and another under construction. So we focus on design, landscaping, the use of quality materials. We have our own construction company, so we build all of our own developments. And we have our own affiliate, property management, maintenance, leasing, compliance. So all of our real estate activities are performed in-house. I'll just go through these kind of sort of a little quickly. This one's Hillcrest. It's in South Windsor. This one is in age-restricted development. So the genesis of our firm was that every development initially was an age-restricted affordable housing development that utilized 9% low-income housing tax credits as its financing source. Sometime around, 2010, the priorities at the state level shifted. It became much more difficult to be competitive when attempting to finance the age-restricted product. So since then, we focused entirely on non-age restricted or family product. But the first, I don't know, 12 to 15 of our developments were all age restricted low-income housing. So this is one such development in South Windsor, has, I believe, 72 affordable apartments. 80% of the apartments here are affordable. Here is just an entrance drive that I wanted to show of our communities in Canton. I think there's a sense that these community that multifamily housing is inherently like a high density community that renders an image in many people's heads. When there's enough land to work with, which it's getting more and more difficult as time goes on, but when possible, we really try to incorporate attractive landscaping and design components into our communities to give more of a rural or suburban feel to all of our developments. As you may, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but all of our, and here's the most recently completed community in Berlin, all of our communities on the affordable side have direct entrances to each unit, so there's no internal corridor. They're typically 2-story apartments where you walk right into your apartment on the first floor, or if you're a second floor unit, you walk into a private stairwell that takes you up to a flat apartment on the second floor. We've found that to be a competitive advantage for us. I think that people like this. It's more of a home style. People think of them as townhomes. That's traditionally more of like a 2-story unit style, but in realistically, it presents more as a condo. It's just like you park right in front of your own home and you walk right in your own front door. I think it's attractive for the renter who's living in the community, but it's also something that's more easily digested by the municipalities that we approach with new development opportunities. So this was this development in Berlin, 88 apartments. This was a different financing structure. We utilized 4% low-income housing tax credits here, and this one's actually more of a market rate driven development in the sense that 70% of the units are market rate and 30% are affordable. Regardless that we have 100% market rate communities and we have 80% affordable communities. There's no, I would say if you visited any of these communities and you drive through them, or you walk through the apartment themselves, you wouldn't notice any difference or be able to tell that one is an affordable housing development and one is considered a luxury community. In fact, in most cases, the apartment itself in the affordable community is nicer or larger, or has more kind of internal amenities because there are strict design standards that CHFA holds you to when applying for these tax credit financing programs. This is the interior of one of these newly constructed units in Berlin. We use plank flooring, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. All the units have in-unit washer dryer. They're all 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I'd say this 2-bedroom unit is around 1,200 square feet. So I know I'm not sure if there are some topics that I think are of interest to this group. I can address some of them proactively. I could wait for questions. Eliza, I don't know what your preference is on that.
I do have a question which kind of brings
Sure.
up one of those topics. And I know you mentioned your development in Canton. Did that development have like pre-existing infrastructure for sewer and water? Just knowing what I know about Canton, I know it's so small.
So that development did, and we have always sort of like in the due diligence process of site selection for us as an organization, sewer and water we've never developed a community without sewer. So in certain instances, we've had to pull it a couple thousand feet down the road, but we've never developed a community on septic up to this point. In conversations that I've had with other home builders, other developers, as we try to learn more, as we explore more into communities that have that do not have the level of infrastructure development. The technology around both the technology on the septic side, as well as some of the regulatory issues that have been hurdles in the past, seem to be moving in a direction where it's no longer infeasible, or at least it's not as big of a hurdle as it has been in the past. I would say water is one thing that is still, to me, seems like a deal breaker. Like, I would need to have access to public water. But I would not dismiss a site that's required to have septic. One thing that I understand from a septic design standpoint, that you just need more land. There's, without getting too much into the weeds, there's different levels of regulatory requirement based on, based on a lot of factors. But frankly, there's one level of treatment that is required where you need to like pre-treat the water, that you're effectively operating as as like a small sewage treatment facility on site. The operating cost, the installation and the operating costs associated with that are significant. But you get away from those requirements if the water is able to kind of run its course for a longer distance prior to getting to the treatment point or the septic field. And then there's certain bodies of water that, if they're below a certain class of body of water, you can deposit into, that alleviate some of these treatment requirements. So that is to say that every site is very, very, the analysis on each site is very different.
Yeah, as you know, that's one of the challenges for
Mhm.
a lot of our region, is our infrastructure. Can you talk a little bit about how the process has gone with the communities that you've worked with? Like, have you ever had to, I'm guessing probably not, but have you ever had to use the 830G appeals part of the process, or how does that
So
typically work?
the very first project so this is way before my time. I think it's like 32 years ago. That very first development, it was a 830G application. The town denied us, and they pursued the appeal process. We were successful, and we won that court case, and we have since developed 3 other communities in town. So it was, since then we've developed all in central Connecticut in communities that are close to each other and know each other pretty well. So our reputation and the quality of our product, I think, has been something that has allowed us to, some towns have reached out to us proactively as they kind of work to increase their affordable housing stock, but also hit certain milestones related to temporary moratoriums under 830G, and reaching that ultimate goal of 10% of your housing stock. So with the caveat of that very first development, we've never been in litigation, suing a town for on a denial. We have used 830G both from a friendly standpoint, which really just gives you the flexibility from a zoning, the technical zoning component is always a challenge, because no town has, or at least some towns are introducing floating zones that they that they encourage developers to use on new multifamily developments. But the reality is that it's much easier to effectively spot zone a parcel, because each parcel may have its own unique constraints with respect to setbacks and needed density, and rather than impact multiple zones across the town that it may not be appropriate, it is easier to use the zoning flexibility that's granted under 830G when going through a new development.
So when you say friendly, I've heard that used a few different ways. Are you referring to you speak with like the people in charge of P&Z or the CEO of the town, and that makes it friendly, or is that referring to CHAPA financing making it friendly?
No. So we have effectively stipulated in writing to the town that we're not going to like, we're using, this is 830G. You will get the benefits of, we will covenant that if approved, this will be considered assisted housing, which will give the town all the benefits. All of the units will count toward the town's various metrics for affordable housing. But if you deny us, we're not going to sue you. So we've basically just said, look, we're not here for the fight. We're if you don't want to hear, we're not going to, there's no threat going on here. So that's how we've handled it in the past. But I've also recently I've sat with a more than one town planner who has said, look, and I've offered this, and they've said, you know what, a friendly 830G is not, there are some challenges with that too, because you're never going to make everyone happy, and there's going to be members of town who are going to oppose the development. And if the commission, if the threat of this litigation sometimes provides the commission cover, where they, if they run into their friend in the grocery store who says, oh, I can't believe that you approved that development, it's terrible, they can say, well, I didn't really have a choice. And so, I mean, I'll tell you that every single development and its strategy is different depending on the location, the town's appetite, or open-mindedness for affordable housing. So it's gone a lot of different ways. But I'll ultimately, what I'll land on is that we've seen enough towns embrace affordable housing with open arms so that it really is not worth our time to litigate. I mean, as you mentioned at the beginning, we have received approvals on over 200 apartments across 3 developments. We have another kind of approval and on its way, I guess, or it's targeted. So that's filled our pipeline for affordable housing financing opportunities for the next couple of years. It doesn't really, it's not really worth the time or the money if a town doesn't want it.
Would you do me a favor and stop sharing your screen so I can see everybody?
Sorry.
Sorry. And then I know I said we were going to do questions after, but I think there's a pretty good question in the chat, which is, does Metro have a minimum break-even size for 80% affordable?
For 80% affordable. So we're looking at developments in the 60. So South Windsor, which is our most recently approved development, was 55 apartments. And I don't see us going any smaller than that. That was a real stretch. That was a community that was there was some opposition in the community, and in order to try and find a meeting of the minds, we reduced that development by 25% of the original proposed units, and that I would say that is our threshold. But it also depends on some of those upfront costs. If the cost of the land was higher per unit, then my break-even number would probably be even a greater number of units. But for that particular development, that's where we shook out.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess I should say that question kind of leads me to another, which is often I get asked, like, what affordability, what does that look like? So for the 9% tax credit developments that we pursue, all of those are going to be 80% of the development is affordable at some level of affordability. It ranges from 30% of AMI to 80% of AMI. And then the final 20% is market rate.
Okay. What do you think that municipalities can do to make development easier for you?
I like informal zoning hearings. I don't know that they often end up helping, because informal, usually the public's not there by the time, if there is a public hearing and the public shows up, a lot of times the commission's tone can change. But I always, regardless, when I'm speaking with a zoning, like a town planner, would love the opportunity to meet with the zoning commission first and formally to at least hear some potential concerns before we put pen to paper and design a site. And then there are things like fees on the like utility connection fees are a big one that I think towns both on, I mean, sometimes it's as simple as going from single family to multifamily where the connection fees were clearly designed for a single family hookup. And we worked in towns where the connection fees like 10,000 to 12,000 a unit. Whereas, you know, I think more typically for multifamily development, you're looking at like the 1,000 to 2,000 per unit. And it's taken time for towns to understand that you're still going to get a large fee for connecting to this development. But it's just, there's not always the mechanism to modify that fee. And something like that can seriously make or break, you know, the feasibility of the development. And then the last, people often think that with affordable housing, tax abatements or tax considerations are required. So we have never received a tax abatement on any of our affordable developments. It's true that we are inherently taxed at a lower rate than a market rate development because the assessor has to take into consideration the value of the property, the low income, the net operating income of the property. So we have some market rate communities that are taxed at somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 per unit. On the affordable side, it's probably closer to 2,000 a unit, or a little less, a little more, depending on what the town's mill rate is.
Thank you. And Carol, who is the first selectman of Deep River, is asking what's the minimum amount of land needed for like that small development that you just referenced. Their issue in Deep River is finding a piece of land to make affordable happen.
Yeah, so that depends on so everything I showed you so far was a kind of larger tracts of land that allowed us to do this 2-story kind of less dense execution. So in South Windsor, our parcel is a little over 5 acres of land that we're developing, and we ended up with 55 units. I think we could have done probably 72 units there, but so where you typically on that style of development, we're between 12 and 15 units per acre. But at the other, so I would say it's probably between 5 and 8 acres for that style of development. But there are denser prototypes, so if you're in a land constrained community, the reality is that you're probably looking at something that might be a single building, more of an urban design that's 3 or 4 stories.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I think
Mark?
Thomas was raising his hand.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I can't type. And these look great. And it obviously, if you've done multiple projects, you've worked out how to work with towns. Who manages these properties after they've been all sold? And do you stay in it, or do you have one company that handles a lot of these, or do you use different companies?
So these are all rental properties. So none of them are, we're not selling these units individually to homeowners. They're all, they're leased as apartments. We have never sold any of our apartment communities either. So every community that we've developed, we retain ownership of. We have a property management company, an in-house property management company. So it's staff of our organization who, who perform with affordable housing. There's really leasing, and along with leasing comes compliance, because you have to ensure that the individuals meet the income restrictions. And then we just have property management and maintenance, responding to work orders, performing regular repairs, that kind of thing. The only items that we outsource are landscaping and snow removal. Everything else is performed in-house.
does that include maintenance? I'm sorry if you said that. Okay.
Yeah, maintenance is performed in-house. Large capital repairs, like if we have to replace a roof, we'll subcontract that out. But all, we have a a licensed HVAC technician on staff. So any mechanic, heating, cooling issues, we have an employee on staff who addresses those. He's got a couple of guys who work underneath him. And then we've got a team of 12 guys who respond to work orders.
Okay, Mark, did you have a question? So you're muted.
How about now?
You're
You're
good.
good.
Okay, good. And thanks, Ben, for speaking to this group. Question: can you talk about a little bit about the competitive process for the CHFA financing, and kind of explain how your company's been so successful getting financing through them?
Sure, I like that question, Mark. It's very much on the mind right now because they're announcing the awards on Thursday. We've got two projects that we've submitted this year, so we're all kind of sitting on the edge of our seat. But the 9% tax credit, which is the single largest financing vehicle for affordable housing, really, I think, across the country. What it is, they're federal tax credits that are given they're allocated to each state based on that state's population, and then that state, like the state of Connecticut, decides, okay, what's important to us in terms of affordable housing? What do we want to incentivize these developers to do? They create this scoring system, awarding projects points for characteristics of the project. One of the things I described earlier, the high opportunity areas, is a really large point earning component of a project. So if you're located in Bridgeport, you get likely 0 points under this category, where if you're located in Farmington, you get them, depending on where in Farmington, you get could be up to 15 points. In a development where I think, or in a competitive process where the winning applicants get somewhere in the range of like 80 to 90 points. I mean, that's a huge part of the location, is really a huge part of that process. But we've been pursuing these tax credits as an organization for the last 30 years. The QAP, which is the document that describes what you need to do in order to earn points, it changes every couple of years. So we just are hyper focused on exactly what we need to do to maximize every possible point. There's certain things that we benefit from as an organization, that we're awarded points for our years of experience, for the fact that our maintenance company is a woman-owned business. So there's certain things that we kind of automatically have a leg up against some of our competitors. But it's mostly just understanding the formula. Like, we need to have at least this many units affordable at 30% of AMI. That gives you a certain number of points. We need to have at least 20% of our units at market rate. That gives you a certain number of points. So when we're evaluating sites, in addition to looking at what's the cost of the land, are there issues with topography, is there access to sewer, we're also scoring that, pre-scoring them, and how well is this development going to score if we're intending to submit for tax credit financing. The process, basically, there's one window annually. You submit your application in January, they announce it in April, and if you're not successful, then you have to wait until the next January in order to apply again. So it's a very high stakes. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to even get your application in a position where you are able to submit. So it's a very serious and competitive process. Ben.
Eliza, I just wanted to comment on that 9%. Ben, traditionally the DOH through CHFA funds maybe 3 to 4 of those projects a year, if I'm correct. I mean, the 9% is the sort of the benchmark one. I know I heard you mention this before. Have your organization explored that's not obviously the only financing gap closer that's available through the agency and through CHFA. Have you explored other financing mechanisms or gone through? I know the commissioner right now is getting very creative with the 4%, and we're finding that the smaller to medium projects, 4% is more successful. There's the home. There's probably about 6 or 7 programs out there outside of the 9%. Have you worked with any of those? I just don't want to characterize that program as the only method of getting
That's
this
right.
to happen.
That's right. So the 9% certainly will typically finance the larger projects. And I think probably this year we're looking at probably, if I had to guess, 6 projects being awarded, and each of them will have somewhere between 50 and 90 units. So the last development that I showed in Berlin, the one that we recently completed, was a 4% tax credit. That was a very not something that's necessarily replicable, but it goes to your point that the commissioner is getting very creative with ways to finance these developments. Before Berlin, our last development was in South Windsor. It was another more market rate driven transaction, but we did 20% of the apartments at 60% of AMI. And there used to be they called it just in time money with DOH, so that we were funded through that program. It's a gap filler for setting aside those units as affordable. There's also now a product that is, I guess it's DOH money, but CHFA is administering the program, and it's the I forget the name of it, but we call it the workforce housing program. And so that's, again, more of a market rate development where they're willing to, because right now everyone's problem is interest rate, construction costs. So a lot of these 4% deals that we're penciling out in the past, there's just too big of a gap. So they're offering funding if it's let's say you got a development that was approved without any affordability, and you're willing to kind of trade off some of the upside in order for some more beneficial financing terms. Instead of it services more of what they refer to as the workforce housing kind of band of the affordability spectrum, which are units at between 80 and 100% of AMI. And so that's something although I haven't seen anything like officially financed with that product yet, it's relatively new, but I know that there's a lot of activity and interest around it. We're looking at it for one of our developments in Farmington, one of our market rate developments.
Thank you. And you guys are, what's your vacancy rates, and how quickly do you fill up? Do you even have a vacancy rate? I guess.
No,
Question.
I mean, you're always going to have lower vacancy on affordable communities than on market rate communities, but our affordable vacancy rate is probably between 1% and 2%, and that's just a product of the fact that when someone moves out, you have to take a couple weeks to change the carpet and paint. Otherwise, we'd be at 100% because there's a wait list for every single one of our communities. On the market rate side, we're probably 3 to 5% in the past several years, which is very, very low. I mean, there were times 4 or 5 years ago where one of our older properties may have gotten closer to 10% vacancy, but we're not anywhere near that these days. And yeah, so the in terms of lease up, so the community I just showed you in Berlin, it's not what I would have thought from a location standpoint. It's right next to Eversource, so you can see they have they call it the pole farm, which they train their employees on. So it's not like the most beautiful site, but so we kind of were a little concerned about what leasing activity would look like, at least faster than any community we've ever constructed. So there's still clearly demand outpacing supply, at least in from what I see on our end.
Thank you. I think it's really important to stress that these places are filling up so quickly and how high demand is. So thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate all your insight, Ben, but I think with that topic, that's a really good segue to start talking to Debbie about some of our real estate questions. And if you don't mind sticking around, there may be more questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So Debbie, go for it.
Oh, full disclosure, this is only my first meeting, so I don't have a fancy presentation, but I can talk about a lot of things, and then also I can send reports and answer questions that you do have. And we are definitely in a critical inventory shortage when it comes to rentals as well as availability for sales. And just a little framework right now, if you look for rentals available on the MLS. Now, obviously, there's people who are doing it on the side or doing it on Facebook, but listings in Middlesex County under 2,500 for condos, multifamilies, single families, there is only 31 listings available. 31. So that is a critical shortage. Right now, I have 4 different clients or people that have contacted me, and a lot of them are seniors, and they need to be under 1,500, under 1,200, and there's no place. There's no place to go. So we are definitely in a shortage area. One of the things, are you guys familiar with the United Way and Alice?
We at Rivercog are. I'm betting most people on this call probably are.
Oh, well, no, 'cause so involved with the chamber and stuff, they came and gave a presentation, and I know we were talking, I think I was talking with Susie, just like with the stigma that we have with affordable housing and everything, but they actually have the stats, and they have a thing called ALICE, which stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And so these are people who are working and they're above the poverty level, but the percentage of residents in that town is really kind of staggering, that I think for me, it was really mind blowing. Like, for example, Old Saybrook, you think, okay, that's a nice town and everything. There's a 5% poverty level, but 31% of the residents there have ALICE. They're constrained with finances. And so this really, it was shocking. And like Middletown, it was 33%, and Deep River was 32%. So almost a third of the population has income restraints and needs to live there. Just a couple of, one of the things I brought up at the meeting that I had last week and prompted, and I sent you guys some graphs, and I can follow up with that. But one of the things, if we take a look at from the market, we look at what is, supply and demand. And right now, despite what maybe the national media says, the Northeast is in a severe shortage, and we evaluate months of supply as a way to determine what is it, a buyer market, a seller market. And 6 months is considered a balanced market. Above is buyers, below is sellers. And right now in Middlesex County, we have a 2-month supply of homes. That's it. And when you break it under 300,000, we only have 1.4 months supply of homes. And I just there was a property that was listed in Haddam for $279. It was a 2-bedroom ranch on Killingworth Road, so busy road and everything. There were 33 offers. 33 offers. And I have these first-time home buyers that I've been working with, and we just keep getting shot out because we're dealing with people who are doing cash and obviously escalations and things like that. But 33 people try to buy affordable housing and only 1 got it. So there's 32 more people out there still looking. So we are definitely in a shortage area. The other thing that I think I'm actually doing on Thursday in Durham. We're starting out, and hopefully I'm going to go to other towns, but we're doing what they call calling it a golden transition seminar, because I do think there is an opportunity for seniors, and it's more of an educational. We have an attorney, we have a mortgage person, we have a handyman, just to talk about, do you make adaptations? And if you were to downsize, what is the process and things like that. But there is, I think, a big gap. I don't know if you heard the term silver tsunami, and, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? But there is a lot of people that, okay, I would like to downsize, or this house is too big for me, but where am I going to go? And when you were talking about all these affordable housing, it would be great to get all this information, but you don't have any occupancy or you have a waiting list. So that's the challenge. So those are just a couple of the things that I had to talk about. The other thing too is, despite people making comments, everybody's leaving Connecticut and stuff, I don't know if you guys saw the Zillow report. So Zillow in December 2023 came out with their top 10 most searched cities in the country. And Connecticut was in the top 4. Four of the Connecticut towns were in the top 10, and Middletown was actually ranked number 7. So we are getting people from, all over. I think I sent you a migration report so you can see where people are coming in, and I will add Lyme and Old Lyme to it, but we're able to see where the buyers are coming from and to be able to analyze. So I'm able to get a whole bunch of data and reports that can kind of help. Like I said, this is my first time, so I'm not sure what you guys all want, but
Yeah, no, we really appreciated all that information. And actually, I have I have some slow computer issues, but Marcos is on deck to pull up some of those reports that you
Okay.
had sent us if you want, if you think that's helpful, or if you want to wait until you can add Lyme and Old Lyme, I can just email them to everybody.
Okay, I mean, I can do it. So they do break it out by county, but then also we can get town reports and stuff. I actually, for example, I picked up Old Lyme, and if you take a look at the months of supply in Old Lyme, it's 2.6 months. So you actually do have a little bit more inventory than other towns and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So yeah, but we're able to, look at rental trends and things like that. The other thing that, with affordability and rentals, and I have had this happen frequently, that there are so many scammers out there. I had a property and it was a vacant house, and somebody had actually made a fake account of me and put up my listing as a rental, and he came in with a really low amount. And I had, fortunately, a lady called me, but they're out scamming people because there's no rentals and people are looking for anything. And fortunately, she called me and I tried to report it. I reached out to the guy. He made like a fake ID with the address of the property and everything. And so I always tell people, if it looks too good to be true, it is. And it's happened with Craigslist, but there's like, I think becomes a desperation with people just looking for, your basic need of housing. And there's just so many scammers out there. It's just disgusting. It's disgusting.
Wow, that's, I guess, not shocking, but that's too bad.
Yeah.
What I know you've touched on that you're having a hard time finding rentals, you're having a hard time finding a little bit of the lower price properties, but can you talk about what is missing maybe in our region that like as far as type of housing in size, like where's the misfit between what people are looking to buy and what we actually have? Or is it just that we don't have anything?
We don't have anything. Well, it's the affordability. So there is, definitely the aging population and people looking for one floor living, looking for the ease of things. And, like you talked about the infrastructure, because like I live in Durham and we do not have, actually, except for Main Street, we have city water, but otherwise you're talking about well and septic. And when you talk about people are looking at, okay, maybe do I build? But the cost becomes so much that, that's not affordable too. Because somebody's like, oh, I'll put a little tiny house. But if you have to build a septic system, that's going to add to the thing there. So I really think, there's the people who want to like have single family or, not have neighbors next to you. But there's people who just need a house, that any place to live that's safe and, in a decent condition. And, especially with, I think, the aging population, you get some multifamilies that are for rent and they have stairs and they're not able, from a mobility standpoint, be able to handle that. But I think there's a gap across the board in every town and every state. Like I'm on a lot of Facebook groups and people are always, hey, I'm looking for a rental. I'm looking for a rental. And people are always, oh, call Debbie. And I'm like, I wish I had something. And it's also causing people who do want to sell or need to sell. Where am I going to go?
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like you've touched on this a little bit, talking about seniors looking to downsize, but otherwise, who do you see trying to come into the region? Is it people that are already here trying to move about in the region, or is it people from outside the region trying to move in?
So I think you have a combination. There's a lot of people. So there was an interesting stat that like the, people in their 20s, like only 72% actually think that they will ever be homeowners because the affordability of housing and stuff. And, and it's kind of across the country, but especially here in Connecticut. So I think you have those people who, hey, I got a job now. I'm tired of paying rent, or I want to get out of my mom's house. So you do have those younger generations that are looking, first time home buyers that are looking. You have people who are looking to downsize. I mean, people you know, whether they're, we call it the 5 Ds, you got diapers, divorce, death, diplomas, and derelocation. But there's a lot of people, you know, like where I live in Durham, my little tagline is city close, country fresh, but we have people who work down in New Haven or they work in Hartford. So it's a good central location, but you have a lot of people that are, you know, coming for jobs, relocating. I had a property, it was listed at $599 and we had 23 offers on it. And it went over significantly, but interestingly, 4 of the buyers that were presented were actually from Maryland. And we had one that was offering from Texas, and we had one from Washington. So we are kind of seeing, you know, I think everybody leaves Connecticut and they're going down to Florida, but you know, actually Florida is ranked number 2 on moving here back to Connecticut. So you do have, I think it's just a combination. I wouldn't say there was one set. It's only this, you know, group and stuff. You know, you do have a lot of people that might, you know, if they're looking for school districts and things like that, go more for the rural, you know, or Durham, Middlefield with regional, or Haddam and Killingworth versus, you know, going into a Middletown or something like that. So you do have school systems that will impact, and obviously commute levels and things like that.
Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. That was enlightening. Not surprising. I have a daughter who recently just got a nice job in Durham and is trying to find a house, and she's fits right into your story.
Yeah.
with her new husband. Question about the post-pandemic or the wave. How much of this crunch, especially the people coming, the urban flight aspect, do you see as echoes of the pandemic, and do you see any relief from that over time, or are we going to have to develop our way out of this?
When the pandemic hit, I remember, okay, we're going to do Zoom calls and stuff. And actually 2020 and 2021 were my best years ever. And if you take a look at 2020, 31% of all the sales, now this is in the state of Connecticut, so obviously Fairfield a little bit higher, but 31% of the closings were New York buyers. So we are still seeing a little bit of that, but not as much. We are seeing people from different states and things like that migrating in. So I do feel it's interesting. You will see a lot of properties that were purchased in 2020 and 2021 that are coming back on the market because there was that, you know, flight and for whatever that saying is, you know, that they're like, oh, let's get out of here. But then they're like, wait a minute, I could live back here, or I made a rash decision. So we are still seeing, you know, certain price points where you're having a lot of activity, where you're seeing escalation clauses on the listings, as well as I'm not seeing as many waiving inspections, whereas like in 2020 and 2021, it was like, here's cash, I'm not going to do any contingency. So there's a little bit more of that happening. But you also, when you get into an affordable, you know, like this one in Higganum, where you had 33 offers. We had an escalation clause. It was listed at 279. We were going to escalate up to 335 and offer a $10,000 appraisal gap. But we were doing inspections. So, you know, I don't know who won. It could have been a cash deal, or it could have been no contingencies.
Thank you.
What do you see happening with land, vacant land that's for sale?
So there isn't, so the thing about it is, what is it going to cost to develop and stuff? So you have, one of my team agents, we just had a property in Middletown in the South Farms area, and it sold. We had a couple of different offers, and they were some developers and stuff. So it really depends on what is it going to cost to put in the septic system or to develop it, and what can they sell for the property. Because, you know, trying to target and get under 500,000, you're going to get the be able to sell it better than if you went with a high-end home of 700,000 or 800,000. But for example, there was a lot here in Durham that was listed for 129, and I heard it sold for 155 cash, no contingencies. So there are people who are out there looking for land, but it's also, you know, what's the topography and what's it going to cost to improve it? or, you know, to make it, you know, if you need a well and septic, what is it going to cost? You have to blast all those things.
Sure.
But right now, there's not many land listings either. And a lot of times it is too high and it becomes an affordability, because I had a couple land listings in Middletown, and they were just individual lots, and people are like, oh, I just want to do a tiny house. And they talk to a builder and they're like 700,000-800,000. So
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Debbie?
So, you know, Mike Fletcher would be worth a lot.
One of the things, and I know that your vacancy rate, but one of the things that I just had taken a note, I know, is it Ben, right? Ben Tripp? Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm trying to articulate. So as a realtor, if I have somebody looking, I'm just looking on the MLS. But if there are developers in affordable housing that there's coming out, it would be very good to do some kind of communication, mass communication to the real estate community. For example, it wasn't necessarily affordable, but there was new construction in Haddam. And our team listed it just to kind of get it out there, just one of the units. But I think it's important to make sure that realtors know about affordable housing or just other housing options that might not be listed, so that we can at least provide guidance. And like, for example, my Golden Transition seminar, we have a list of over 55, here's different apartments, things like that. But any type of new development or possibilities where we could have a client that could potentially rent and we could sell a house, then obviously that's going to free up inventory for first-time home buyers and
I'll check with, because I know various channels that we use for marketing our rental units, you know, we do some direct, we do some, you know, all the apartmentsrent.com websites.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's listed, and there's got to be a way to, if it's not, to make sure that the community
just like putting a
is aware
blast
of
out.
it. Yeah. So I'll follow up with you. I'll ask Eliza for your contact information, and I'll follow up with you separately.
Yep. I mean, I think that would good for any kind of thing, because, you know, obviously as realtors, we're only commission based, but you know, if we can get somebody into a place, you know, it's not like I'm looking for the commission on it, but if it, you know, it's just helping people here. So just the more we know, because I know people and I know things, but I don't know everything.
Anybody else have any other questions?
I have a question for Ben. Ben, this David Line, let's use the New Canaan project that you were talking about. Was that a 55 unit project?
South Windsor, maybe.
Okay.
There's 50. We haven't done anything in New Canaan, but
I mean Canaan. Yeah, not Canaan.
Canton.
Anyway.
Canton. Yeah.
Canton, your projects, you know, do you have any stats on how many of the affordable units in those projects went to people who lived in the town that you built the project in?
You know, on our last approval for Cheshire, I did pull some numbers, and I can circulate what I found. I want to say it was, off the top of my head, it was somewhere in the 25 to 30% of those units. A lot of it ends up being locationally driven. You know, Farmington's a good example where a lot of our stuff is close to the health center. So we ended up attracting either people who wanted to live close to the health center, or people or like not, you know, doctors and nurses typically do not qualify for affordable housing, but there's a lot of other administrative jobs that, you know, service the health center. And so they didn't live in Farmington, but they worked at the health center. They really wanted to live in Farmington so they'd be closer to their work. So they ended up, you know, so in some sense they were part of the Farmington community because they worked there, but it wasn't really helping, you know, an existing person in town find, you know, other affordable means of living.
Okay, if you have those stats, it'd be nice if you'd circulate them.
Okay.
Sam, go ahead.
Yeah, I do anecdotally know that that the local our local nonprofit developer Hope who developed Spencer's Corners in Essex, I remember them saying that the vast majority were local for that development.
Yeah.
But
But Sam, they couch it in terms of local. That's like a 5 or 6 towns area. I spoke to them too. And when I asked how many of those people came from that town, and they always talked about 3 towns over.
right,
You know, they don't tell you how many people, how many units did they provide for the need within that town?
So
Yeah,
one
it-
thing,
yeah.
I'll just jump in just for a second. So while we obviously, I mean, there's a process for applying for affordable housing. The one thing that we are mandated to do as part of the 9% tax credit program is that we have to give priority to that town's housing authority. So if that town's housing authority has a wait list or has somebody that they are looking to place, then we go to them first before we open it up to whoever is next on the wait list or whoever's applying. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that the town's housing authority is pulling someone from their own town. They can go with that outside the town as well, but it is at least going to that, an organization that has ties with the municipality that is, presumably working in the best interest of that town.
No, that's interesting because that's the first time I've heard that if you use federal or state money, you're not.
Yeah, I don't think it's all federal state money. It is in the qualified allocation plan, which is for that is applicable to 9% and 4% tax credit financing. So if you have there's other buckets of money, if it's a DOH specific deal, I don't think that is it's something I would do always regardless because it's the easy, it's low hanging fruit. You go to the town's housing authority, they should be able to help provide you with, qualified renters. But I know for the 4% and 9% tax credit programs, you have to prioritize the town's housing authority.
And is that a one-time thing when the project is new, or
No,
is
so
that ongoing?
No, it's ongoing. It's ongoing. And in the vast documentation that I have to complete when I apply for this, it's just a covenant that we have to say we agree that we are going to, prioritize renters off of the local housing authority waitlist if one exists.
And how long does that covenant on the property last? Is it
So
until the loan is paid off?
Yeah, the affordability covenants are typically 50 years. Well, 40. It's a minimum of 40 years. You get additional points if you extend it to 50 years. So that's typically what we're seeing on new developments.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the full disclosure, I'm on the board of Hope, but an additional complication is, say you build something in my town, Westbrook, and you say and a 3-year graduate of Westbrook High School is living in Middletown and wants to move back to Westbrook. Are they from Westbrook or are they from Middletown? And so it just gets more complicated than just from town or not from town.
Too, we are mostly small towns and we're trying to think regionally as, we're in this group. So that's just something to think about. Anybody else have any other questions? If not, I'm going to hand the meeting back to Michael.
Thank you, Liza. And thank you, Ben and Debbie. That was at once very enlightening and kind of depressing as well in some aspects, when just looking at it from the vantage point of Old Lyme, where we don't have infrastructure. So it's difficult to get in the kind of scale that you were talking about, Ben, and then listen to Debbie about even though we had that whopping increase up to 2.6 months of inventory, it's still a real challenge. And I'm just scratching my head to think about how can we get creative about this. One of the paradoxes I was thinking of is Old Lyme, again, using Old Lyme as just an example, but I know we're not alone, is a high opportunity area with no infrastructure. So how can we, maybe that's an angle for some sort of regional cooperation to, I don't know, have some kind of point exchange where we can work together to get some of this done, where it won't work in any single place if we can work together to do it. But anyway, that'll be something we can discuss more down the line. But in any case, thanks so much, Ben, and thank you, Debbie. I think the series is really going well, and look forward to the next versions of it. Okay. If there's nothing else on this, then let's move on to item 5, methodology materials. Liza, is that you again?
Do you want it to be Megan?
Yeah, I can do it. I
Okay.
apologize. Eliza was kind. I have strep throat. As you know, I have 2 small children. They are gross and they bring home germs all the time. So I will try to keep this brief. We sent out some materials following our intro to the methodology for the regional housing needs assessment. The first go round was pretty general, just trying to get everyone oriented with the history of doing regional housing needs assessments. It covered, the case studies that we overviewed at the last meeting, as well as Connecticut. So we thought that would be kind of a good place to start. We didn't receive questions, so we're assuming that everybody got it, read it, understood it. It was perfect. There's nothing you need from us on that. If there is, please send questions our way. We won't list anybody's names, but we will put together a questions and answers document that overviews just kind of the general themes that we heard from people. And then yesterday, I believe you received the second kind of drop of information, which covers our first case study from California. So you should have received some background information from the state on the way that the state allocates housing needs, both from their website and a YouTube video. Fortunately, California is working on their next housing needs assessment cycle. And so they were doing some public engagement, which included an overview of their process, which works out quite nicely for us. So I grabbed that. There's a link for you to watch the video. And then I sent also the San Diego Association of Governments, or SANDAG, methodology documentation. And they have both their plan, which is for everyone to consume in everyday language, and then they also have their technical methodology documentation. I included a link to the technical documentation, and I dropped it in the folder as well, so you can access it if you would like to. I don't think it's strictly necessary. I think you can get the information that you need from the general document. But if you have questions, again, as you go through it, please send them our way, and we'll compile information for you based on what we hear from everybody.
Questions? Discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, we can go to updates from members. That's open, so. I can break the ice on that. Last week at a town meeting, we got approval to donate 2 parcels of land to Habitat for Humanity that are going to be the sites for only 2 units of single family affordable housing, but it'll be the first town project since our commission came into being. So we've got a couple of more in the hopper as well. So we hope that's we can build some momentum from that.
What's the status of the grant application that you guys are waiting for?
We're waiting.
Okay.
There's no update,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, there's been, unfortunately, the staffers at our congressional offices have have been asking questions they were told that a decision would be made at the beginning of the year, and we've since passed the beginning of the year. So we do not know the status of our pro-housing, but I would assume that they'd want to get this money out shortly, but unfortunately no update.
Anyone else? Okay, hearing none. Upcoming meetings. Our next meeting, if I'm reading my calendar right, is on May 22nd. I'm sorry, it'll be May 20th, Tuesday, right?
I think it's the 28th. Fourth
So,
Tuesday.
yep, I'm totally wrong. May 28th, May 28th. Yep, third time a charm. Thank you, Eliza. I was looking at the wrong month on my calendar here.
Can I just interject one more thing that I should have said a minute ago, Michael?
Please.
We are very happy to share that on our website, and I'll put the direct address in the chat. We have been working on a spreadsheet that includes a bunch of grants, like as many grants as we could possibly find. We were trying to get it all in one spot, and Marcos has done a ton of work on that for us, and it's beautiful. Thank you, Marcos. So if anybody wants to take a look at that and see what's out there for your potential projects for your towns, that's a resource for you.
Thank you, Eliza. Now, I was thinking for upcoming agenda items, maybe we can send out the link for the Alice report. I know Debbie raised that. I know when I first discovered that was some years ago, it was really an eye opener when I found the very surprising fraction of the households in Old Lyme that are cost burdened by housing. In a place where if you just walked around, you might not think about it, but I think it's like 27% in Old Lyme. It's like 1 in 4 households. So that was a surprise to me. And when people learn of it, I think they are surprised. So if you haven't looked at the Alice report in general and for your town, it's a good read. And maybe we can send out the link, Eliza. And I was just thinking out loud for our invited guest series, maybe have someone in from United Way to talk about how they went about that and some of the underlying.
Yeah, we know a lot of friends of Alice at RiverCog for sure. And then speaking of invited guests, next month, Ben Lovejoy from Department of Housing, who is here already.
Listening along, yeah, I'm excited to present to all of you. Kicking off the beginning of the year, the Commissioner of the Department of Housing hired me with and tasked me with creating a municipal technical assistance program for communities that want to make movement on their 830J plans. So I'm really excited to talk to you about the program, and if your municipality is interested in getting involved, how they can, and sort of what we'll be doing. So thanks for the shout out on that, Eliza. I look forward to talking with all of you next month about that.
Thanks, Ben. We look forward to that. We were a recipient, I think, in the second round of those technical support grants, and it really made a huge difference. I appreciate that. Okay, for the rest of the agenda next month, we have the general framework that we'll stick with, and we have our speaker. So if there are any suggestions or questions on next month's agenda, you can raise them now or over the next couple of weeks as the agenda is coming together. Please feel free to send it in to Eliza and Megan, who are doing an amazing job at keeping all this together. So if there's no other questions on that, I think we can move to adjournment. Anything, Eliza? Give you a last. Megan, anything? Anyone
Please
from the
do
group?
the reading.
Do your
Do the
homework.
reading. Do your homework.
Debbie did drop the link to the Alice report in the chat, but I will also send it out in an email too if you don't retrieve it.
Awesome. Okay then, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll
Did you catch
second. I'll second.
Got it, Eliza? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Great. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next month. And
All right, thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thank you for a good meeting.